Over the years, I've found a lot of ways to make diving so much easier. There's no reason for it to be hard. So don't go anywhere, because today we're talking about some scuba hacks that will absolutely change your life as it pertains to diving. I don't think it's gonna like erase your debt. In fact, if anybody knows how to erase debt, hit me up in the comments. Okay everybody, welcome back to Dive Vibe. My name is Zach. If you don't know me, I'm a technical rebreather instructor, and I'm also a former Army medic / CLS instructor. And today I'm gonna be using that expertise to teach you about some of my favorite scuba hacks. So let's get started. Has this ever happened to you?
Finally done cleaning up all my gear. Just gonna put the spool away. No!
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Well, it doesn't have to happen to you, because there are a lot of ways that you can lock up your spools and make sure that they don't come undone on you. And I'm going to show you a couple of those ways. So one of the easiest ways is to just kind of do a little lock on your double ender right there. Right, so this is actually, I got this from an Apex video. Fairly simple to do. Have a length of line at the end that you can clip onto, a little loop. And then you're going to bring it over and around behind the gate. This is called the gate on both sides. You can see as I'm pulling up, it makes it harder for it to open. Bring it up and around the gate, and then give it another wrap. Is it good yet? Nope, we still got a little more. We can give it an extra wrap, and then just slide that right onto there. Throughout the video, I'm going to be using all kinds of tips and tricks. Some of them I came up with myself, some of them I got from other people. When I got them from other people, if I know who it was, I'm going to do my best to credit them. So full disclosure, this line lock I got from an Apex video, and if I can find it, I will put a link to it in the description below. Now, my personal favorite is to add a little loop of bungee to your spool line. It's not going to come apart because I've got that there, so when I want it to come undone, super easy. It comes undone, wrap it back up, get my bolt snap in there, clip it off just like normal, and then your one extra step is to grab your little loop of bungee and throw it over to your spool. It's very easy. I got this tip from Andy Davis. He's got a website. He works over at Scuba Tech Philippines, I believe is the name of the shop. The guy's got a lot of info on his website, so I suggest you check that out. Thanks, Andy, for the tip. Been very helpful for me. I like it. All right, number 2. This one is pretty dang simple. Write your name on your stuff, because you would be very surprised how often you drop stuff under the water. Everybody loses stuff. I don't care who you are. Eventually you're gonna lose something underwater, and if your name is on it and someone recovers it, especially if it's got your phone number, they might be able to find you. They might be able to get it back to you, especially with GoPros and stuff like that. But sometimes the name and phone number can actually wear off of it. It's usually pretty hard to read in the first place. So one thing that I like to do, and one thing that I think is very helpful for people that might have found your stuff and might be trying to get it back to you, even if your camera floods, typically the SD card is still good. You just clean the contacts with a little bit of vinegar. I actually have a video where I found someone's camera underwater and got their SD card back to them. The camera was shot, but that didn't matter because I was still able to figure out whose it was. And I actually made a video about it. If you'd like to see that video, you can check the link right up there. I'm terrible at that. But I did a video about it, and it's a cool video. Basically, they were a local free diver, and I was able to figure it out from the pictures on their camera. But if you take a picture of your business card as one of the first pictures on your camera on your SD card, then that's gonna make it extremely easy to find you. So that's a good way to go about it. Highly recommend that you have a photo on your camera that can easily identify you, so you can be found, so that they can return the SD card for you, because everything you take in the ocean can and will be lost eventually, usually. Side hack, you don't want to take an SD card into the ocean that has anything that you wouldn't want people to see on it. No lewd pictures on any SD cards going to the ocean. Got it? That's important. You don't want that in your life. You don't want that stress of thinking, what if somebody finds that camera? Especially if you're on vacation. Especially if you're in Hawaii, I'll find it. I find cameras, and I always check the SD card. Okay, number 3. This is a good one if you are a dive master or an instructor. Hair ties. Take some hair ties underwater with you. I keep them on my inflator. You don't necessarily need them underwater, but let's say the bungee on your DSMB brakes. What's a great thing that you could use to secure that? Well, one of these hair ties that I keep on my inflator. And honestly, people need these all the time. One of the #1 things I hear on the boat is, does anybody have a hair tie? But I'm always happy, especially since I can just steal a couple of these from my wife to keep them on there, and they're useful for me sometimes. I'm always happy to be able to give these out to someone with long hair that needs them on the boat, because it just, you know, it can really make or break a dive for people that have long hair. Plus they're useful to me, plus they're free. You don't have to use these fancy ones. My wife is fancy, so she buys these, but you can use the cheap ones. They work just the same for both parties. If they're picky and they want the nice one, then don't give it to them, because you shouldn't be picky when someone's being nice to you and giving you something. Ugh. I mean, the tips that you'll probably get from that will outweigh how much those things cost you, especially since they were more than likely free.
All right, so one of the best ways to make yourself look like a better diver is with Photoshop. First things first, we gotta fix that trim, because my guy is looking a little bit like a seahorse, so we're just gonna twist him around, crop it up, fill that bad boy in. While we're at it, we're gonna get rid of these stupid looking tank straps, gotta clean that up. Get rid of the danglies down here, no more of that. Then we're gonna make it a little more contrasty, change to black and white, add in something to make it a little bit more interesting. Fill that in, make it look a little nicer, make it match. And next thing you know, you got one of my thumbnails just needs a stupid title like, you won't believe what we found in the water.
This next one I think is overlooked a lot, and I'm talking head to toe buoyancy, which is a really stupid way of saying your trim. And your trim just means how you sit in the water, whether your head down, whether your feet down. If your legs are heavy, then you're gonna be feet down. And thinking about your body as something that you're trying to weight and make neutral and make horizontally trimmed can be extremely helpful for you, especially when you first start out. But then if you move on to rebreathers later, trim weighting especially is so incredibly important. It's ridiculous, because let's say you've got your counterlungs on your shoulder and they're making you want to rise up, so you put some weights there, but let's say you don't put enough. So every once in a while you're diving, you get a kick and you kind of start, and your head starts creeping up. Well, then the gas that is in your counterlungs is going to expand just a little bit and create more buoyancy when you go up like that. And when your buoyancy needs to be so finely tuned with a rebreather, it really screws you up and you end up wasting a bunch of dill gas, inflating your BCD and all that stuff. And to be totally honest, a lot of my students in my class, the ones that don't listen to me about this stuff, end up eating up a lot of dill and having a really rough time with their buoyancy. So I always say that you should dive, especially if your legs sink, you should always dive a wetsuit with a rebreather. But what if it's too hot for a wetsuit? You don't quite need that much, especially with a rebreather. The gas is warm, so if you're warm underwater, then the gas can just feel downright muggy. So that's not really all that awesome. Let's say you can't add any more weight to your shoulders to get yourself down, because then you'll be overweighted, and you don't want to do that, especially with the rebreather. Being overweighted kind of sucks. You have to be overweighted sometimes depending on the tanks that you're carrying, because you may need to use them and then they'll become possibly buoyant, and it's a never-ending thing. So weights. What else can we do? Well, we could do positively buoyant or, you know, kind of neutrally buoyant fins. We could use thicker boots. Another thing that we could do, I don't know if you guys remember these things. You probably do. They're nothing. Like 10 years ago, a company showed up, and it actually, shark skin might have been first, but the big popular one was lava core. And these things are about the equivalent of like a 2-3 millimeter wetsuit top. They're pretty warm. I like them. They're comfortable. They slide on easy. But the #1 thing is that they're neutrally buoyant. There's no positive buoyancy to them, which is fantastic, because what we can do with this, well, first of all, if you don't want positive buoyancy on your legs, then you could just wear this if that was cool. But what you could wear with that are neoprene pants. That gives you positive buoyancy in your legs and no buoyancy, extra buoyancy in your chest. Helps you fight the counterlungs from the rebreather, helps you fight those heavy legs that you might have if you're born with heavy legs. Heavy leg squad, rise up. Anyway, if you've tried everything to get those legs up, because especially in tech classes and stuff like that, they really want you getting those knees up, right? If you've tried everything, this might be helpful. That way you don't have to like keep your legs up the whole time. All right, #5, we are talking about regulators this time.
Regulators! Regulators.
And in particular, DIN regulators. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and replace every yoke reg you have with DIN regs right now. But I am saying in the future, if you are going to buy a new regulator, buy DIN. And the reason you should buy DIN is the longer you stay in diving, the more likely you are to eventually get into technical diving. Even if you say that you're never gonna do technical diving, never say never, because you might end up there. I've definitely known some people that didn't think they were gonna be technical divers ever in their life and ended up taking rebreather classes with me. So stop buying yoke regulators, buy DIN, because let's say I'm not gonna use my rebreather anymore and I want to use this as a single tank back mount regulator for recreational dives. Well, that's easily done. All I have to do is slide on one of these DIN to yoke or A-clamp, whatever you want to call it, converters, and this just twists on easily. I don't recommend leaving them on there because they do tend to get seized on with the salt and all that good stuff, but easy as that. And we can take that off and go back to diving DIN whenever we want. Now, like I said, you don't necessarily need to go out and buy all new regulators or convert your regulators over, because yoke regs can be nice for recreational single tank stuff, because typically when you go on a dive boat, that's the tanks that they're gonna offer depending on where you go. More than likely it's gonna be yoke. That being said, if you want to convert your regulators to DIN for whatever reason, if you have a Scuba Pro regulator, they are extremely affordable to convert to DIN. Aqualung, Apex, which are my other favorite brands, not as inexpensive. So I might look at keeping those as yoke regs, if that benefits you at all. If you can make use of some yoke regs, then keep your Aqualung Apex yoke if they're already yoke. If you have Scuba Pros and you want to convert some regs, Scuba Pros are the way to go, because they are so much less expensive. In fact, in general, that's one thing I will say about Scuba Pro versus a lot of the other manufacturers, is the Scuba Pro parts very inexpensive. I've been through the Scuba Pro repair clinic, worked on some of their regs. They're great regs. I mean, I also like Apex and Aqualung, but Scuba Pro honestly might be most of my future purchases, because the repair parts, and when I say repair parts, I don't mean the kits, I mean the parts. Like, let's say someone sits on this box bottom and crushes it. It's not gonna break the bank. You do that with some of the other regulator manufacturers and you might be spending like 150 bucks to get that thing fixed, which is just a little bit ridiculous for a piece of plastic. But everybody's gonna make money. Okay, if you stuck with me till the end, and you've watched my other hack videos, then you know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a bonus hack. We gotta have a bonus hack. So, I am eventually gonna do a video about my Save-A-Dive toolkit. This is both a Save-A-Dive kit and a Save-A-Dive toolkit. It's got a bunch of parts, it's got a bunch of tools that I need. Subscribe if you haven't, because I'm gonna be doing a video about this in the near future and you guys are gonna wanna see what's in here, but it's a secret for now. However, one thing that most people don't think about are tools in the water to save your dive, because sometimes the problem doesn't present itself until you're already in the water. And then depending on how you're diving, you might be kitted up with double cylinders, you might have a stage tank or a deco bottle, a rebreather, a scooter, and it took you maybe 30 minutes to get all this crap in the water, depending on where you're diving. Obviously, if you're diving off the boats in Florida, probably not all that difficult. They can help you out. You can get your stuff squared away. But for me, diving out here, doing mostly shore diving, scooter dives and stuff like that, sometimes I gotta fix my stuff in the water. So this is my normal butt bag that I carry around. I keep my, my instructor slates in it. I keep a spare mask. I keep wet notes, all that good stuff. This is indispensable. But on this outer pouch right here, I keep a couple of things that most people don't take underwater. So we got a little bottle of defog that's probably more saltwater than defog at this point. We got that, we'll talk about that in a second. And we have a mouthpiece. Now for open circuit scuba, if you get a mouthpiece with a little hole in it, it's no big deal. I mean, you might have some wet breaths and stuff like that, but it's not that bad. It's not gonna hurt you. Now diving a rebreather, if you have a torn mouthpiece, that is a dive ender. That is a get out of the water and stop diving that thing, because it's dangerous now, because you can be introducing water in there. You can build up, you can end up with a caustic cocktail, you can end up with a scrubber that's not working as good as it should. So I keep a mouthpiece with a zip tie in here just to make things easy. I usually keep more zip ties in there, but apparently I've used them. The other thing that I keep, and there's a whole bunch of different ways to do this. This is just kind of the way I like to do it. So I got this one off the internet. I think I got it off Amazon. It's an aluminum crescent wrench. And not everything on it was aluminum. The little axle for this adjustment barrel right here wasn't aluminum. It was, I don't know, something trash. So I actually replaced that after it rusted out with an M6 bolt. Just ran it into there and kind of hubbed it on the end, and it's not coming out. I also greased the inside of it with some Dow Corning, the silicone grease, because this is stainless and this is aluminum, so you're going to have that dielectric process in there. The dissimilar metals are going to cause more corrosion, so I put that that grease in there to kind of help out with it. We'll see how long it goes. The wrench was like $10, so I'm not going to be super sad if it's gone. But anyway, this thing has already saved a couple of dives though. Where a hose has come loose and all it needed to be was snugged up, this wrench is perfect for that. Another thing that's happened to me underwater is one of my cam bands, the big hose clamps on my side mount tanks, has come loose, and that makes for really awkward dives. So I've got these. These were supposed to be a little bit more corrosion resistant than they are, so I'm gonna find a different screwdriver for that. It's a process, but they're still usable like that. So I've got a Phillips head, a flat head, I've got a crescent wrench, and that's easy. Another thing that you could do that's actually even smaller, even more convenient, are these guys from Excess Scuba. I've met people that keep them in their bag underwater. I don't know if this is stainless or not, but it actually looks pretty good for how long this thing has just been rolling around in the back of my truck. I don't take this underwater with me, but I'm not shy with it around corrosion. It literally lives in the back of my truck. And the reason for that is typically if I have to go back to my truck for something, I'm not gonna want to open it up with my keys and all that crap, because it's just a big headache. But this thing is just in the bed, so I can reach in there and grab it and use it. So these Excess Scuba tools are great. They have a valve tool, which is really good. And then you've got your 5/32, your 3/16, and your 1/4 inch, which are close enough to some metric ones if you need that. You can also do, there's 9/16, 11/16, and 5/8 wrenches on there. There's even a 1/2 inch, which I don't really need for much, but 9/16 and 11/16 really useful. 5/8 is sometimes useful, but this is actually super useful to have around, because sometimes valve hand wheels can come loose. I've actually had one come loose on me underwater, and I ended up fixing it with one of those like DIR butter knives, like a steak knife with the tip rounded off so it was flat. I was able to fix it. Not a permanent fix, but enough to get a dive done. I would say go ahead and just take one of these underwater with you and clean it every once in a while. If you need something like this, if you need a tool, this would be what I would go with. They're a little pricey. I want to say this thing's like 25 bucks, but it's not that bad. Anyway, take some tools with you underwater if you have the space. Not if you're just doing recreational single tank diving. I mean, maybe, depending on the situation, it might be useful. But when you're doing side mount and back mount doubles and rebreather and stuff like that, there's just so much more to go wrong. The likelihood that you screwed something up when you were assembling it is so much higher. So it's good to have some tools with you under the water. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, well, I hope that you found this useful. If you did find this video useful, then please hit the like button, or if you enjoyed it, hit the like button. That's very helpful to me. Subscribe if you haven't, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can become a member. If you look below, you can click on join, and you can get access to special emojis to use in the comments and little icons to go next to your name to show that you are a Dive Vibe supporter. Hell yes. And if you are already a member or you're one of my patrons, then I love you very much. By the way, everybody on Patreon, if you'd like to come over, all the pricing levels are the same. It gets you the same stuff, but you also get like the emojis and stuff like that. Just make sure you cancel your Patreon, because you don't want to be double paying me. I would feel really weird about that. I already feel weird about people giving me money to make videos, but I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Anyway, thanks so much for diving with me today, and I'll see you in the water.
Beat by Apollo, stop at New Apollo's. Copper Henny sour, and I'm puffing Jack sour. Yeah.